Matthew.
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 Matthew. And Matthew. What is enterprise investing in?
Well, the one thing that they are investing in is a lot of generative AI capabilities, which is good for my company because that's one of our areas of focus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, they're looking at Gen AI as kind of an investment proofing, where they think it will continue to pay off uh, over longer terms. So a lot of them are still not really fully utilizing the power of what Gen AI is better at. I mean, like the chatbots are fine,
Mm-hmm.
but there's just too much frustration with the edge cases and with the chatbots. I think the more interesting stuff and the stronger potential for Gen AI is actually in uh, business process automation, where you're automating processes or work activities that people don't like doing. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, for our own company, we built an agent that closes the books every quarter, and it used to take a number of members of our finance team a week or more to do that, and now they can do it in a few hours, and they just have to check the results.
Right.
But they're much happier. Looking at it from a complex workflow perspective, like I've worked in this space for 10 years, first with machine learning and now with Gen AI, and people have always wanted to automate the tasks that they don't want to do.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
and the downside is, things like Midjourney and ChatGPT highlight all the fun things you can do with it that are like kind of like, frankly, they're things that you'll look at once and probably never look at again. And so there's a huge environmental and cost, associated with kind of creating that ephemera that is going to go away after you post it to that Instagram or personal chat message or whatever. But for process automations, those are things that you can invest in, knowing that you're going to free up your team's capacity to go work on much more important things and not have to deal with all the mundane paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what the conversations I've been having with the customers, that's where their focus is. Like, they're not as interested in it in terms of like making cool images or diagrams or outlining an email. Like, they don't, like most CIOs and CTOs and CMOs and CFOs don't really think about their employees writing emails that way. like I'm dealing with like much bigger problems. So they want to focus the Gen AI on those bigger issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like the chatbot is this is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but sort of the equivalent of a hello world. Like this is our entry into this. This is our practice we need to have an AI solution. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe once people get their legs under them as far as that kind of thing goes. Yeah.
More. I think it's also, let's be honest, the companies that are doing a lot of that have the highest profiles around the generative AI don't necessarily, like Facebooks and others don't necessarily have the best reputation at the moment in terms of how they deal with the data. And so I think companies are also nervous about the security and the governance of their data and what's happening to that data. Watching how Facebook has leveraged people's personal information, um, would they do the same thing to a company's information? Then you run into things like Palantir and others that are very much in that space, and they make it really clear that that's what they're doing with the data, is trying to build unified models. I think most companies are still figuring out how to secure their data and make sure that their IP remains their IP. and that you know they're still making sure it's going to do what they want it to do,
Mm-hmm.
and not cause spillage or leakage.
When, and you don't have to get into details or anything, but like when you're having these conversations with the CTO or the CIO or whomever, where is where's the drive coming from
For
in the
that.
sense of like, or motivation? Where's the motivation coming from beyond the we'd like this to be more efficient? Like, is it being extracted from conversations, or is it a more top down approach of like, go do this?
It's a combination. Some of them are very exploratory, but some of these folks have done a lot of homework on their own.
Mm-hmm.
One of our recent customers, I won't mention who,
Mm-hmm.
the individual we were working with, the executive, had already done just an exhaustive amount of research into this topic, and could hold his own in any of the technical conversations with our data science team. Um, and so I think you have folks like that that are really working hard to understand what the potential of this technology is, um, and then you have other folks who uh, are getting pressure from shareholders or analysts to do more with the Gen AI capabilities, and so they want to find out uh, what's possible
Mm-hmm.
and what they can do. And then, a lot of times they're still dealing with legacy data systems. So,
Of course, yeah.
um, they're like, we have all this information, we have terabytes of data, we haven't been able to do anything really meaningful with it for a long time. And now, not only can we uh, integrate that and transform that and put it into more modern systems, we can use that legacy data to actually train more robust models that have a much deeper history, if you will, that can feed into that model. So if they can prepare the data effectively, then they can use that to train their agents and make those agents perform much, much better and provide them with
Mm-hmm.
more context. So I
How
think,
big of a leap is it? How big of a leap is it, do you think, on getting the data ready? Just given how I'm sure there are 17 different systems that are,
uh, your mileage may vary. It's
yeah,
it's definitely depends on the organization and how they've prepared that. Our company still works with systems that use very old,
of
like
course, yeah,
COBOL systems and all sorts of stuff.
right,
We have the ability to like work with any data source and any data destination, um, and it really varies based on the company. Um,
yeah,
and you know, it's not um, it's not a necessarily an easy task, but it's one that can be
yeah. How long are the projects usually take?
done. The agent stuff is still like some of them are up and running. Most of them uh, take months to maybe a year. It depends.
Mm-hmm.
If they're doing migration along the way and moving the data to a new system and then using that to power their agent, those can take longer.
Right,
Um, and it also depends on how distributed their data is, how much preparation has to be done to clean it up.
yeah,
But it really varies. Each one's kind of a unique uh, instance. Um, if you have standard backend tools and you're putting in a standard front end location, those are pretty simple, even for the agent side. But depending on how much legacy infrastructure you're dealing with, it could add to the complexity. Yeah. But
so like from a, because every once in a while I feel somewhat compelled to say the letters U and X together. Um,
so
from a sometimes
it's a good thing. Yeah.
I I try not to do it too often because I know how
Good.
powerful it can be.
Don Norman appreciates the plug.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Oh shit, I said it once. I need to mark that up. Send him 25 cents. Um, the like from a UX perspective, like what are some of the challenges that you're running into as far as
Oh,
like?
the
I mean,
agent.
whether that's just on the interface level or and I mean UX in the broadest sense, like
Yeah.
organizational alignment and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
So, it's pretty much the same thing other folks, I think, have probably been talking about. The biggest one is trust. So there's different types of trust from the organizational perspective, the security and data integrity and those types of things. That is one type of trust that you have to go through from a governance perspective that requires audits, and, accountability and transparency, all those types of things. And then there's the trust from the end user perspective to know if it's doing the right thing. So in our product, we have a tool called SnapGPT that you can type in a prompt and it will build a data integration for you. So
Mm-hmm.
like with ChatGPT, you can type in a prompt and it will write you an email, or it'll write you a outline for a paper or whatever. Um, our system will generate a data integration for you, a pipeline. And so the trust there is, is it really building the right pipeline? Is it doing the right things along the way? Um, is it transforming the data the way I want it to? Is it normalizing it? Is it merging the cells? Those types of things. And so there's trust there where you just have to, like, proofreading the thing that comes back from Claude or any of those tools. You have to kind of proofread what the segment comes back with as well. And so there's different flavors of trust from the organizations that we work with. So I think that's probably the one of the biggest things that we face is the trust. And then there's the uh, awareness of what the capabilities are. So
Mm-hmm.
there's always new skills that are coming along with these tools. And so it's a question of how do you educate people about those skills and what its capabilities are. And so that's a big part of it. And then there's also just some, uh, you know, views around I want to do the stuff like I got into this because I like writing code, and you guys are taking that away from me, and I want to keep writing code. And so there's that reassurance that we're not trying to remove you from the equation or change your job description. We're just augmenting what you can do, and perhaps doing some of the more mundane tasks on your behalf.
Mm-hmm.
So that that type of trust becomes a really big part of it, and the knowing what it's capable of and knowing when to use it and all those types of things all feed into that kind of trust aspect of it. Um, we haven't encountered so much of the concern that this is going to take my job.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's because the folks working with these legacy data systems understand that there needs to be a human in the loop for many years to come on most of these tools. So
Right.
that doesn't come up as much. So
So is this with the trust and the awareness? Is that manifesting within the system, outside of the system, both? Like, how are you addressing?
a,
Yeah.
a lot of it is just the way that we're providing the transparency and the feedback. Um, we have skills that will evaluate. So we can generate the pipeline and then we can evaluate the pipeline. And we can evaluate manually built pipelines with this tool as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being able to be, really clear and transparent with folks, it's like, yep, we know they did it this way, but it may not be the best way, and maybe you should change it this way or do this other thing. Um, there's just, you know, the ability to provide real time feedback on the system. Um, and the way that we've built it into the product, we solicit feedback and satisfaction, not a customer satisfaction score, not the net promoter score, but just like, did this do what you
Right.
expected it to do, and what would you like it to do instead? um, and so we're trying to create more of a conversation, uh, both with the agent or the chat gpt or snap gpt, sorry, um, with that as well as with uh, the person using it. So
Mm-hmm.
SnapLogic can talk to the customer, and then the customer and SnapGPT can talk to each other. And then we also have an agent creator tool that allows you to build your own agents. And so there again, we're providing high degrees of transparency. So we have a prompt composer that allows you to create this is super nerdy conversation. I don't know if this is like super nerdy. Sorry. Um,
That's fine. Go
it
for it.
it basically so um, one of the big things here is that the prompt will rewrite itself based on the data coming through the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So as your data evolves, the prompt will evolve and keep up with it. And so we have this uh, UI, this user experience design that our designer worked on with the team to show you what's coming in, show you how you're transforming that data and what's coming out the other end with the prompts that you're writing. And so you start off with a simple prompt. We come back with it's like the technique of going to Claude or Gemini or something and saying write a prompt for creating a business plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it comes back with is this huge prompt, and then you paste that in, and then it comes back with this really complete business plan. So if you have the tool write the prompt for you, but like it's like this meta thing, right? So we built that into this product where you can write a simple prompt. We come back with a more complex prompt. You can edit that complex
Mm-hmm.
prompt and then create the integration for the agent. But as the agent is watching the data pass through the system, it will refresh its own prompt to provide you with the best quality outcome based on the parameters you've given it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that type of control over these agents becomes really valuable for folks. And then being able to get updates when the prompt is changing and how this is impacting the performance of the agent and its ability to do things more autonomously. Um, the unfortunate thing is everybody's data landscape is becoming much more heterogeneous as new systems come online and new things happen and all that kind of stuff. So there isn't like there's the inverse of normalizing your data, right? It's becoming much more diverse. And so
Right.
this capability helps you leverage all that information effectively as it comes through the system. And by showing that to people and explaining it to them and letting them be aware of it uh, in a not overwhelming way. It's not like we're shouting at them or they don't have to stare at a
Yeah.
dashboard, you know.
Right.
But it helps them understand what's going on. And from a UX perspective, it's driven a number of innovations that we haven't seen with other products. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of a lot of the UX is shifting behind the screen for generative AI, and
Yeah.
it's really understanding the problems people are trying to solve and what the solutions should be. Like um, it's much more akin to service design or architecture, where it's building a space that people will be happy in and feel good about being in, but you don't have to overtly control how they move through that space.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our early conversations were around kind of the way they designed Disneyland or Disney World, where um, the experience that you have when you go there is very much influenced by the architecture and the environment and the mindset and a whole bunch of things that are not directly tied to your using engaging with one of the cast members or actually jumping on the Splash Mountain ride or the Haunted Mansion ride or whatever. A lot of your experience is set just simply by walking down Main Street.
Right.
And I think Gen AI is in a similar spot.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. It's there's an overall constraint within you've got to play within that constraint, and because once you go outside of the pay to get in area at Disneyland, you're not. I mean, I guess you're in the parking lot as part of it, but um,
They even designed the parking lot, which is kind of
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But like there isn't a it isn't a interactive narrative that you're following where you've got to do this ride, then you have to do this ride because we've designed it for you this way.
yeah,
It's all right, we've set up these things that you can do. It's up to you to sort of determine what your path is going to be. And you're going to be influenced along the way by those experiences. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I get that service design perspective. Yeah.
yeah, and it's the whole area of conversation design where
Hmm.
it's not necessarily just verbal, you know, communication, like verbal conversations. I think you know we should expect it to expand to set and setting and uh, like the sequence of events that you're going through, the context that you're going through, and having much more situational awareness. So um, it's like having a very attentive like personal assistant or someone who um, knows what what you're gonna want when you come home, or it's like
Hmm.
how you're gonna interact, and I think there's examples from my past that I can think about. Like we were used to work with when I was at Apple, we worked with a group that did focus groups for us. You can love or hate focus groups, but the guy who moderated the focus group
Yes.
um, had this really interesting thing worked out with the other people. So he would be in the room, we'd be behind the mirror, but he had this really interesting thing where he would reach back and like scratch the back of his head during the conversation. But each seat around the table, like there were like 5 seats on one side and 5 seats on the other side. And so, depending on how he scratched his head, like if he used his thumb or his finger, like which fingers, how many fingers he had, indicated which seat on which
Hmm.
side of the table. And his assistant would come in and gracefully say, like, this person, had a phone call, and could they please step out and take the phone call? And so everybody's like, fine. So they would take them outside and say, hey, here's your money. Thank you so much. You can go home now. If the person was like, say, being disruptive or dominating the
Yeah.
conversation or that kind of thing. And so it's all of these things that from the people in the focus group, their experience was never interrupted. The assistant may come back and say, like, so sorry, but they had to go home. Like they had a little emergency, nothing, nothing to worry about. And so everybody just kind of felt like nothing happened, right? And it was all
Hmm.
fine. But they managed that experience so well that nobody noticed that they had been managed, right? And I think
Right.
that's kind of the aspiration where people want to go with the Gen AI is that it's not that it's managing you, it's supporting you and providing you information and, you know, augmenting your capabilities, but doing it in a way that is not disruptive and distracting from the moment. I was on a flight yesterday and there was a guy who came onto the plane staring, he was playing a game on his iPad, and he bumped into every single person walking down the aisle because he just would not put his iPad down long enough to find his seat like halfway down the plane. Um, and I feel like, we need to kind of move beyond that. Everybody's staring at their screen and hopefully, work more towards reconnecting with each other as humans.
Hmm.
I would, I would like to believe that like the emerging technologies that we're seeing can help us do that, um, as opposed to uh, locking us into some VR headset that we just never leave our recliner and it's watching Wally, but from with a VR headset.
Yeah, I think that's it's funny, not funny, but what you say reminds me of I think it was back in like 2009 or something. I did a project for a shipping and logistics company that was regional to the Northeast, and they wanted to redesign the software that they were using to manage everything. And so I did my actual job and sat with the people doing the work to understand, do some research first. And the the executives were all like, "Hey, we need you to like automate as much as you can." Like that was just that's always the siren call of executives, right? It's automation, automation, automation.
Right.
Um, and one of the things that came up with during the research is I can't remember what their job titles were, but I remember one person saying like, "I'm not a whatever it was. I'm a problem solver. Like I help people get their shit done.
Yeah.
And so the conversations then with the executives turned into, yeah, there's definitely some things that can be automated here, but I strongly suggest you never take away the agency these people have to solve problems for other people, because they're out there connecting with someone who's standing in the middle of a parking lot for a trailer they're supposed to pick up and there's no trailer there. Like,
Yeah.
let me as a human help this other human.
Yeah.
um, and I wonder the extent to which, so like, the project went on a bit and then they took everything back internal, which was the plan, but I never really knew if the extent to which they, like, I know they heard me, but like, did they instill that into the DNA of their company, right? Which is always my hope.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering the extent to which, like, the stuff that you're working on now, are you finding ways to either get your organization or the organizations that you're working with being considerate of those moments, of those opportunities to connect people,
Yeah.
rather than just, hey, we can subsidize some workflow activities or whatever.
Yeah. So we actually, we have our own professional services group, and then we work with a number of partners to do these implementations. And we have been building out, kind of the position and the model and the how to do it, where there's a lot more of the upfront needs assessment, as opposed to somebody
Mm,
coming in and saying like, "Hey, just automate this process."
okay.
And my previous startup company, so I've been working with machine learning and Gen AI for like 10 years. And the first one was a personal search tool that could also begin to model routines that you might have. So, like every Friday, you sent an email to your boss summarizing what you did that week. And so we had built an engine locally on your machine that would capture all the stuff you did that week and summarize it into an email and just say, hey, like, do you want to send this email to your boss? And you're like, great. Um, and then that led into, uh, you know, there's the robotic process automation surge, um, in terms of automating business processes. And so I co-founded a startup that used the same type of technology that we used for the search engine to model the workflows that people actually did.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we found as we were doing this, we could watch people do a business process, like, process a loan application, for example. And the email comes in and they open up the PDF, they read it, they fire up a browser, they go to this app, they do these things, they come back, they write another email, they send it back to the person who sent them the email, and like all these things back and forth. And the model that they had of their own workflow, that none of that level of detail existed, right? And so when they went to try to automate the process, it failed because they didn't really know what the process was. So we
Mm-hmm.
saw this as an opportunity to kind of model out this process. And along the way, it became really clear that the pure automation of these processes was losing that human touch,
Yeah.
and that human beings really need to help support each other. And so we were looking at ways to integrate in collaboration with this stuff. And so, since, we had these little indexes from other people's, from each person's machine, we were looking at ways of, maybe sharing and de-identifying some of that information. So it's like, hey, has anybody ever had this problem before? In this collective knowledge base that was generated from their actual work, not some formal knowledge base that they created, um, kind of post hoc or whatever. But it
Mm-hmm.
was actually like, oh yeah, like if that happens, then you need to do this, and you have to go back and like, kick the server, and then like, these things will happen, right? It's
Yeah.
like those types of activities where it's like none of this is documented, like in the official like documentation, but it's the how people actually work with each other. And that was the thing that was super fascinating to me on that at that startup company, was really capturing those moments of how people actually interact and work with each other. Um, it reminded me of work by Julian Orr, who like uh, way back in Xerox PARC days, Julian Orr was the anthropologist who went on site dressed as a Xerox repairman and would troubleshoot the Xerox machines with people. And then he talked to them about how they use them and
Mm-hmm.
what they were trying to do. And so it allowed him to collect user research without it being a formal thing. And people just thought they were talking to the repair guy because he was fixing the machine. And so, they were just a lot more open about what the issues were and, some of the things they were trying to do with the machine that it may not have been intended to do and, those types of things. And so they learned a lot more about how to make that product super robust. And I feel like these automations need to have that mindset where it's like you need to go actually find out how people are really working. Um,
The context of use.
yeah, and if
Yeah.
you're not doing that, you can build an automation. And we saw this a lot with the RPA stuff, where people would build an automation for themselves or for a small team, and within a matter of weeks, those automations were just sitting there. They weren't doing anything because they didn't actually understand the full context of use, and they would break, and then no one would want to go fix them because it's a lot of work. And so we're working with our professional service team and the partners to really understand what is the full context of use. And so, there's the classic kind of model around the introduction of new technology where you have the peak where everybody's super happy, and then you have the trough of
Yeah.
despair, and then it kind of comes out. And what I've proposed is that by rapidly prototyping with these tools, you could actually, you know, forego that fake high that you get from the peak, but leap across that trough. If you can actually prototype things faster with the people who are going to use the products and use these agents to make sure that they're included in the definition of the agent and how it functions and how it makes these assessments and trade-offs. So it's not
Right.
just based on somebody coming in and you know having an expert's perspective on what this business process should be, and really taking a much more human-centric approach to creating these automations and these agents. And so, we're trying to push that model, uh, not, like with doing these types of custom implementations. It's you can't force somebody to go that way, but you can try.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the fallback is always, you know, this is what works best.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's like sussing out whether the client is, for whatever reasons, and some of them are valid sometimes, that they need some quick win if they're trying to convince the rest of their organization about something,
Yeah.
um, that they're not so worried about the long term impact of not doing it right the first time,
Yeah.
versus ones who are like, no, we want to build this because we want something that we can sustain and grow
Yeah.
and rely upon.
Yeah, because this technology, I mean, it's incredibly powerful even now. It's going to continue to get more capable. Um, but I don't think anyone should have the expectation that like they're going to get it right the first time. It's 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 a
Yeah.
it's like back. I was in Netscape and back in the very early days of Netscape. And the first e-commerce sites that came along did not get it right. And over the years, like people
Yeah.
figured out how to run a business on a website much more effectively, or how to create more compelling content, how to actually create content that could be consumed on a website as opposed to a
Mm-hmm.
book, kind of thing. Um, and I feel like we're in a similar spot here where it's this is still we're still in the invention phase, and we haven't really moved into the innovation phase. Uh,
Right.
um, we're we're still like all of the new inventions people are trying to assign the value of an innovation, but they're just an invention at this point.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think the real value of the stuff's going to come out when folks can balance the cost and the impact that this technology is having, uh, because we can't ignore the environmental impact and the true costs of providing these services. I think, if somebody actually had to pay the real cost for like transforming a photo of their cat into a samurai, they would be shocked because they probably
Yeah.
spent more on that image
Yeah.
than they did on their cat's last dental bill.
Yeah.
Which we just got, and I'm shocked at how expensive cat dentistry is. But uh, the I think the real innovation is going to come when people start putting this thing in more context and trying to run real businesses or real services off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, that's really expensive. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
they may not want to use it all the time, everywhere, for everything.
Yeah. So when you're, I don't know, maybe this is the job of, or part of the job of professional services, but um, I guess this is not a fully formed question. My favorite kind.
It's not a fully formed
Uh,
topic. But
yeah. Um, I guess I don't know. We'll experiment with this because it's about experimentation.
iteration.
To what extent are the customers being primed, prompted, guided toward thinking of these initial engagements with them that your company has with them as experiments that may have a date, if that happens, at which you stop and go, all right, did it break anything? Like, do we really want to keep doing this? Like, are you have anybody who is interested in that at all, or is it more let's go?
Most of our customers do a proof of concept before they,
Okay.
uh, will sign the contract. So that's true for folks buying our system with the agents or without the agents. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, they have probably been trying to work on, like, just for the straight up data integration thing. They've probably been trying, for at least a couple years to extract the data from these legacy systems on their own. And they probably have a couple folks in their team who are like, yeah, I can make this happen. I can do this. Like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. And they roll up their sleeves and they get in there and they're like, holy crap, this thing is really hard. It's like
Yeah.
repairing an engine on a World War II aircraft carrier or something. It's like, holy crap, like nobody knows what this thing.
While it's in motion.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, there's no manual anymore for it. It's like some legacy system that's 20 years old. And so uh they oftentimes don't have a lot of faith that the problem can be solved to begin with. And so they do a proof of concept with us, and we demonstrate that, in fact, the problem is solvable and they're going to get value out of it. So most of the companies run a proof of concept first, and I think that's true for most enterprise companies. Um, or there's probably a threshold for the costs, um,
Sure.
that
Yeah.
says, like, if we're going to spend something with two commas in it, it's going to have a proof of concept associated with it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's like taking a car for a test drive or something. Um, you want to make sure it's what you really want before you spend the money.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty. I think
Yeah.
it's pretty
I'm
common.
thinking about past experiences and stories I've heard from other people where there's a, it's sort of roadmap by fiat, I guess, or roadmap by whim of some executive where it's like, hey, do this now,
Yeah,
um, and how much risk there is associated with that, that they don't seem interested in addressing or listening to, and perhaps at the when you're spending something with two commas in it, there might be a little bit more hesitancy, but um, I guess my hope is that there's more experimentation, more treating it as let's see what it can do rather than this is what's going to get us to the future. Let's go all in on it, like some other companies have
have done. Yeah.
have done. Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially in the areas where like you're dealing with a company's data, uh,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's customer data or, order history or, whatever it is, it's kind of, you're getting into like their secret sauce, it's like the thing that makes
Yeah.
them successful. And so there tends to be a lot of concern around governance and access controls and who gets to see the data and those sorts of things. So I think while there is a desire to experiment to see what's possible to use the like do with that data and use that data for,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a tendency for the organizations to also approach it with a little bit more caution in terms of just you're experimenting with our data. Like, what does that mean? Kind of thing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
overall, being able to show them what's possible and how they can build agents to do these more complex things. We have, you know, generated data sets that, represent different segments of the market. And so we can, even before we get into an official proof of concept phase, we can show them what's possible with this stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit more brainstorming and, you know, experimentation. These tools are not, it's not like Figma or Lovable or something. Like the rapid iteration on a data integration project by design standards is like glacial in terms of the pace of the
Right.
iterations, because it's just so many people involved and so many stakeholders involved. But we try to iterate as quickly as we can. When with the agents, it's much easier to be able to do that
Mm-hmm.
than traditional data integrations. But we still try to iterate as fast as we can. Yeah. Because the
So
experimentation is critical.
yeah. So back to UX for a second. Again, not the greatest question, but we're rolling with it because this is a conversation between two people that just happens to be recorded, and you don't have to ask good questions in those. Um, what about the space you're working in now is UX missing, whether that's getting wrong or not involved with enough that you think they need to engage with more, or just have a blind spot to,
Or enterprise software in general.
yeah, or even enterprise software in general, or relative to you know AI
Yeah.
stuff.
I think one of the big things where UX needs to get more involved is in understanding why, um, because the right now the technology is just verging on magic. Every time one of these systems comes out with some new skill set or whatever, it takes everybody by storm, and it's just like fantastic. And then about half the time there's some massive pushback because of some copyright infringement. Like the recent stuff with the anime things. And prior to that, there were other instances of artists' work being, uh, indexed and taken away from them, basically. Um, and the organizations behind this are just wanting to feed their index, and um, the copyright laws haven't kept up with the technology, and so there's a lot of implications on the societal side of this technology that I think UX is better positioned to explore and understand than I think the technologists are. Uh,
Hmm.
and the business people are just looking to, own the space and be the dominant player and make as much money as they can. Um, but there are very serious implications about why people want to use this and is it really better for them? And there's been recent studies around um, the degradation of reasoning and other things by people who are overly reliant on these tools, and it's all new, more recent studies, and they're being refuted right and left and everything. But I think there still needs to be a good understanding of uh, what this technology is going to do to society and to individuals. I feel like the same thing should have happened with social media, but it just kind of crept up. This is happening so quickly that it's just um, exponentially faster than social media. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's still a lot of research into the impact that it has on people and uh, when it should be used and how do you make it something that people feel that they can trust um,
Mm-hmm.
and that they can understand how it's working. Um, I feel like there's still way too many questions around why. Um, the technologists that I work with and I've talked with at other companies, they're just they just want to make the technology happen. And you know, I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine outside of work about this is like the engineers want to build a bridge to across the river, and the designers are thinking about it from city planning perspective. It's like, well, why are you putting the bridge here? And like, what does that mean from a traffic perspective? And how is this going to change the flow within the city? And um, is it really the right kind of bridge? And what about the river traffic? And living in Seattle, like, there's always like, whenever you have to cross the, to go from the north to south, like
Yeah.
one of those bridges is going to be up because somebody's taking their boat out. And so, um, you know, I think designers have a different way of framing the value of uh, these inventions. To be much more based in benefiting people and making their lives better. And how are you going to either increase their joy or the ease of use or empower them to do things that they've always wanted to do but they can't do? Um, augmenting their skill sets, those types of things. Um, uh, I like I don't always get that the other stakeholders involved in this have that same perspective.
Yeah.
It's concerning.
Have you have you found any, even anecdotally, moments of people who are interested in the technology or interested in the profit margins, having moments of realization of either the impact or the potential impact that something could have that's not necessarily in line with what they're hoping for, or is it blinders on, let's go?
I think
I mean, I know it feels like by and large it's blinders on, let's go, but
yeah. I think more of those technologists are starting to kind of have that epiphany around, you know, uh, what I'm building may not actually be the solution that we're looking for. I think as they're beginning to see, especially with the use of Gen AI to create uh, content on social media sites, um, that can just be an overwhelming fire hose of uh,
yeah.
uh, misinformation or randomization of things or you know uh, videos that are intentionally designed to be much more addictive. Where if you're a dog person, they can create a video of a group of dogs like as cowboys, like riding horses and like doing all sorts of stuff. Because you'll watch that, and then if I'm a cat person,
Mm-hmm.
I'll see the same video, but now it's cats. And if somebody's a bird person, then a bunch of birds riding horses, whatever. And that ability to just kind of flip the content around and exploit that engagement that you have for those people, um, I think is starting to make some people question the choices that they've made. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think we're starting to see more of like more people like Jared Lanier, like putting out, he wrote a great book about like, I don't know, 10 years ago now, probably, um, that was very anti, like, you're not the technology you're using kind of thing. And then more
Mm-hmm.
recently, other authors have written about the impact that social media has on your attention span or the degradation of your attention span, and um, the Gen AI being used to kind of make social media even more addictive and to drive other people's agendas. Um, and so it's um, TV commercials from the 50s, but now it's like 1,000 times stronger, um,
Mm-hmm.
and much more persuasive, and it's virtually impossible to turn off. Um, and then thinking about new devices that are being planned that are wearables or audibles that are just feeding information to you, is really kind of stunning. When I was in grad school, I did grad school with a guy who had done a PhD in auditory perception, and he found this really fascinating as a topic because auditory perception is the one thing that you can't turn off. So you can stop touching something, you can hold your breath, you don't have to eat it, you close your eyes, you can look away.
Mm-hmm.
But auditory perception, you cannot turn off your ears. Um, and so the idea of creating a wearable device that is tied to the one sense, like the one input mechanism that you cannot turn off,
Mm-hmm.
is really terrifying. Like audibles, like the wearables are one thing. The audibles, I'm just like, yeah, like that's going to require so much consideration because the potential is really kind of wild. Um,
Yeah.
I'm very curious where that's going to go. And apparently, some individuals think we should all be compelled to wear wearables for our health data, which is also really scary.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I might have said idiots, but I hear you. I hear you. Um, not to correct you at all. At all. All right. Well, we're gonna switch gears. It is time for 7 plus or minus 2 questions because that makes me laugh. Um, it's like all the people who kind of get that are the people who've been around for a while. But anyway,
Yeah.
so there's no guardrails on these at all. Wherever your mind goes with the questions, personal, professional, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Question one: what's something you did recently that went really well?
What's something I did recently that went really well? Um, we we built a tunnel for our cats to come. It's like a sky bridge to come from our house out to my studio.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Do they like it,
they're
or
exploring
do
it.
they use it at least?
Yeah, they're very outdoor curious. Like they've always been in. Like they're only a year and a half old. They're outdoor curious, and so um, they also have a little catio, but they don't like it because we're not there, and so they want to be where
Yeah.
we are. So they're starting to figure this out, and like, oh, this is kind of fun. But like, in addition to me working in the studio, it's also a painting studio because I also paint,
Mm-hmm.
and so I also have to make sure that the canvas, anything that's still wet paint, is very secure and cat
Right.
proofed, so they don't start doing their own abstracts of
Right.
kitty paws. Yeah, although
Yeah.
that may sell well. I don't know. Maybe I should try to get them to paint.
Right. You could sign your name, and then they could sign their name, and
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
co-created piece.
right. Yeah, that could be fun.
So as okay, so it's 7 plus or minus 2. So I have tangent questions. Are either of those pieces behind you yours?
Yes, they both are. Yeah,
Both are.
yeah.
I like them very much.
Thank you.
Um,
This is this the
tangent.
one of the little crane is more of a political statement. about the consumption and consumerism in Seattle.
Well, I was very drawn to it. So,
Yeah, that's a
um,
newer series. Yeah,
cool. Very good. All right, tangent over. All right. Question number 2. What do you wish people cared more about?
each other. uh, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, um, I wish I wish that they cared more about what's going on in the world. Uh,
Hmm.
um, like starting with their own communities. So, but yeah, each other, I think, um, and that would drive more concern for the environment and the economy and their communities and humanity at large and the ecosystem that we live in. And
Hmm.
I think right now people are too fixated on fake things. Like not, I don't mean like fake news, which is a problem, but I just mean like they're more concerned about the video games they play or the content that they look at on the internet or scrolling through Instagram or other social media. Um, and they, I feel like people just need to pay more attention to each other
Hmm.
and having a little bit more empathy would be really nice.
Yeah. Okay. Question 3. When you're sharing food with people, what's your go-to dish to make?
Oh, that's a tricky one because normally my husband Colin does most of the cooking. Um,
Hmm.
but if I'm cooking, I tend to focus on like uh, comfort food. So I would do like a nice roasted chicken or uh, a big thing of lasagna with like a homemade red sauce and homemade pasta noodles.
Ooh, and noodles too. Wow.
Yeah, I always make my own pasta. If I'm gonna cook, like I try to make my own pasta. And a really wonderful friend of mine grew up in a big Italian family in New Jersey, and she taught me how to make like gravy, the red sauce. So I always have to make the red sauce in our house, but everything else my husband makes. So
Hmm.
and he's a brilliant cook. So yeah,
Yeah, that's a good person to have
yeah.
around.
I tend to focus more on the wine pairings. So
Okay.
we we have gone beyond being wine snobs. We consider ourselves to just be wine snots because we like the wine that we like, and we take it to parties. And,
Yeah. What's your favorite wine to introduce people to?
yeah. Usually something from the Jura in eastern France, um,
Hmm.
like a Trousseau or Pulsar, one of the varieties from there. Or the other one that we really like is northern Italy and Friuli. There east of there, over in Slovenia, and so they that's where orange wine was originated. All wine used to be orange, like white wine used to be orange wine, and
Hmm.
so we like to introduce people to like those types of varieties that and techniques of winemaking that they probably have never experienced before.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I for years I didn't even know orange wine existed, and then someone brought it to an event, and I was like, "What? What's orange wine?"
yeah,
And apparently, it's been around for a while.
yeah,
But
it went away. Like uh, it, the rise of the techniques from France for making white wine, where you pull the skins away really quickly, became much more popular and promoted. Um, but a number of years ago, some of the winemakers in northern Italy in the Friuli area, there were 7 of them originally who got together and decided to really kind of bring it back. Um, and so 2 years ago, we went on a wine tasting trip to that region and met with 5 of the 7 winemakers. 2 of them just don't do tours anymore. They're like, yeah, too bad. But we're really looking forward to it because our favorite producer, this guy Radicon, his wine cellar looks like the set from like it could have been on the set of Alien or something, because he buries these giant clay amphora in this underground room in this gravel floor. So just these little domes sticking up, and it's this neat grid of these things, and there's a little walk around it, and like hidden lighting and a whole bunch of stuff. It's like you're expecting this to be like some alien to emerge, as opposed to just the spectacular wine. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
much happier it's wine than an alien, but
Oh, sure.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
good. But, yeah.
Cool. All right. Next question. What's the business value of empathy?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, I think, well, it shows up in many places, right? So there's the obvious one, which is having a better understanding of the person you're trying to build a solution for, like who your customer is, and having more empathy for them is definitely, I think, a business value in terms of ensuring that what you're building has both ease of use and that it's effective at solving the problem that they're trying to solve, but it also connects with them emotionally, and so it makes them happy. And um, I think those are much more well understood. But there's also having empathy for the people you work with, and I think that's another area where a lot of businesses overlook that value. Like this book over my shoulder here, the Friction Project. Um, the the authors of that, Bob Sutton and Huggy Rao, are professors at Stanford, and they're organizational psychologists. Uh, and I got to work with Dr. Sutton at SAP and one of his grad students on um, the being able to instill more innovation and creativity in the SAP organization. And a lot of that came down to the empathy and really understanding the things holding back some of the development teams from being able to push for more innovations,
Yeah.
and where they're coming from, and their fears and their concerns. So being able to develop a higher degree of empathy for your coworkers, I think, is incredibly valuable from a business perspective. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think everybody focuses on the customers, which is absolutely important, but I think uh, to expedite the delivery of that value to the customers, having empathy for your coworkers is equally important.
Yeah. I think it truly is pretty rare that there's someone within an organization that's trying to intentionally disrupt delivery. Um, and so it really is about understanding like what people's motivations and constraints and barriers and all that stuff are,
Yeah,
um,
we could,
that are getting in the way of getting shit done.
right. We could have a whole other conversation around intentionally disrupting the way people deliver stuff, because that's what I did at SAP. That's what I did at Shutterfly, and that's what I was hired to do at SnapLogic as well.
You were hired to disrupt,
Yeah, at SAP,
but replace it with something better though.
yeah, yeah. Definitely
Okay, all right,
disrupt.
yeah. I was just sticking with the no. I'm just a disruptor.
Oh, I'm just making. I just spread chaos.
Yeah,
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 yeah. Like being an agent of chaos just for the sake of chaos, like that. Yeah,
yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Yeah, most people would not deal with that very long. But yeah, being able to disrupt things to make it better is kind of the thing I've done the most.
yeah. It's fun. It's fun to do that.
Yeah, but it requires the
All right.
empathy.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
It does. Okay, next question. Penultimate. Waving at flaggers, yes or no?
waving at flaggers.
Yeah.
Wait, what in this context? What do you mean by flagger?
No, no wrong questions, no wrong answers. Flaggers are the people who stand there with the stop
Yeah,
and slow signs and during at construction
right.
sites and road work.
Yeah. Uh, yes. I often will say thank you or like acknowledge that. It was really funny the other day. We were going down the street here in Seattle, the flagger had a really bad attitude. Like the individual assumed that we were not going to pay attention to her and that we were not going to stop our car. And she just kept turning around and scolding us and wagging her finger at us. The car was at a complete stop at this point, and she kept turning around and wagging her finger at us and looking at us like, your car moved or whatever. And so I completely forgot the window was down, and I made a comment about like she obviously should be teaching second grade because she's got the attitude of a hall monitor from an elementary school. And then she turned around and she's like, "I heard that." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, of course you did."
Still true.
It doesn't make it a lie.
Yeah,
But yeah, normally, yeah,
that's funny.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's here in Seattle right now. There's so much street construction going on, and it's always
right.
they always wait until Saturday to do it for some reason, like in the middle of the busiest traffic, and so it's. I'm sure they're, you know, they're just being told to show up and like patch the street and shut down this lane of traffic. Um, but all the other drivers are uh, pretty short with them, I think.
Yeah,
Uh, like the bridge that goes into this neighborhood called Ballard here in Seattle was shut down in one direction over the weekend, and it's like the place everybody wants to go on Saturday is Ballard. And so everyone was like furious, and so they were diverting to the other bridges, which also were being worked on at the same time. It's like somebody in the city office decided to just shut down access to Ballard for Saturday. Um, so no one was happy.
potentially someone who lives in Ballard who just needed a break
That could be.
of everybody coming
I
in.
never thought about that. Yeah, it's going
Yeah,
back to the empathy. Like maybe they just
yeah.
needed the day off from all the other tourists from the city.
The local
Yeah.
tourists. Yeah, yeah. All right, last question. Imagine that it's a year from now. What do you hope to not be carrying anymore?
Uh, God. Well, we just cleared out one of our two storage units, and so maybe the other storage unit.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. That's a good question. What would I like to let go of? There's so many things. Uh, the anxiety about the state of the world, the like, frightening degree of unemployment, the situation in the Middle East, the yeah, there's just a lot of things. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So this time next year, all of that will be solved.
Well, yeah, our alien overlords will have shown up and corrected all of our
That's right.
petulant behaviors as adolescent species, and like given us
Mm-hmm.
like a scolding and a perpetual motion machine that we can use to power everything, and
Right.
we'll all be happy.
They'll slightly apologize for not giving this to us earlier, like they probably should have, but
Yeah,
now get back. We'll step away, but you carry on from now on.
yeah. It's way better
That'll be
than the
good.
alternative where they show up and say, "Oh, it's ready for harvesting." Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My least favorite aliens are harvesting aliens.
yeah.
So it's
True, true, true.
all right. Cool.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, hope this was
Let's.
cool.
I was cool. Were you cool?
Yeah, I feel like I was being a nerd. So
I I demand you be a nerd, unless you're not a nerd, in which case don't do that.
I,
But I feel like you are,
I can
so
be a nerd, but I'm also a designer. So you know,
what's the difference?
yeah, I'd like an old school designer that did like the typography and all that kind of stuff, like packaging systems originally and print media and all that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Tech is like the second generation. So yeah, I'm not classically a nerd. Like I can't write code. So
I've honestly, so I've always been on the when everyone's like, designers should learn to code. My response has always been, designers should learn to business.
Yeah,
Um, and it's okay if some designers learn to code if that's what they actually want to do.
right.
And I understand understanding your medium,
Yeah,
um, but
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. The understanding. I think
You know,
that understanding the medium, I completely resonate with that because I often use the example of the Kazam machine that Charles and Ray Eames built that allowed them to bend the plywood and
mm-hmm,
make the. Yeah, originally it was for splints for the Second World War, and then to make furniture out of it. And they had this cool machine that was like they had built it themselves that allowed them to, uh, you know, take the laminated sheets that were going to be plywood and put it in there and form it. And so they really had to understand the material they were working with. And I think for UX designers and digital product designers and service designers, they need to understand that. Uh, but to really have the impact, they also have to know the business. Like they have to know how their company makes business, how they make money, who their customers are. Like, what are those customers like? What are they expecting to get in exchange for buying that product or that service? How do you make that better for them? All those types of things. Um, I feel like that's where designers often lack the necessary understanding. Uh,
mm-hmm,
and then I think as you move up in your career, it becomes even more important uh, to really understand the business and
yeah,
not to be seen as the designer in the room with the other business people, but to be the business person in the room with the other business people who happens to run the design team, the same way that the CTO happens to run the technology team, or those types of
mm-hmm,
things. The CFO runs the accountants. It's like uh, when you're at that level, you have to operate the business, then you have to know how to do that. The group I'm involved in, the Design Executive Council, is really focused on that area where it's like, how do you make sure the leaders, the executives who run design teams, understand that as you move into that role, all of the people who are members understand that it's helping the next generation of leaders understand it's not about being like the best designer; it's about being an effective business leader, and
mm-hmm.
you just happen to run the design team.
Yeah, yeah. It's a can sometimes be a pretty jarring transition for people as if they or as they move out of individual contributor mode into a leadership role.
Yeah,
Like all of a sudden, because I think there's a lot more pressure, especially if you're in a. I mean, it depends on the company size, but um, like if you're a director and up, I think there's a lot more pressure to bend to what the business needs rather than bend to what the users need, which is the job of the individual contributor in a lot of ways to like really dig into what the users need. Ideally, those things
yeah,
align. They don't
always. Yeah,
always.
yeah,
Um, and I think it can be a shock to some people to be like, you know, how do I advocate for the user in these roles? And the answer is kind of like, that's what the people who work for you are for. You're kind of an advocate for the business now, in a
in a way.
way.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's similar to the way that the on the engineering side, it's like the CTO or SVP of engineering or whatever the title is advocates for like new technologies or investing in more technologies and paying down technical debt. Um, framing the design experience in a similar fashion where it's like if we evolve the design, we can get this new group of customers. our
Mm-hmm.
current customers are failing to engage with these features because they're too hard to use. And so we have this design debt that we have to pay down. And so just even kind of reframing the design
Reframing. Yeah.
as the means of achieving a business outcome, the way the technology or a marketing campaign or those types of things achieve the business outcome. It's like, how do you use design to achieve the business outcomes? Um, but going back to your comment about the transition, I was really fortunate to be at Apple when I became a manager for the first time of a design team. Because I went in, like when I got the promotion, I went into the HR business partner's office. I'm like, oh, so how much more money do I make now? And her response was, more money? No, we should actually take money away from you because, like, we don't know if you're a good manager. We know you're a good designer, but like, we're not going to give you any more money until you show us that you can do the job. We're taking a faith on you being a good manager. And by the way, here's like the 6 weeks of courses you have to take to be a manager at Apple, which I still have the books from that class, and it was like 30 years ago. Um, they're just really solid, you know, truths on how to be an effective manager. And I think most companies don't invest in that transition point where, regardless of whether it's design or another area, like when you step into that people management role for the first time, you're just really poorly prepared. And then when you step into that higher level, that director level role, and you'd have to start making that transition over to saying, how do I use the resources at my disposal to move the business forward? Like framing that up, especially for design, there's just not a lot of examples out there. There's far
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
examples for technology. And then going up into the executive level, it's there's just not anything there really. Um, that's what this group, the DXC, is focused on, is helping to build
Mm-hmm.
out that knowledge base. It's exciting.
Well, I'm glad you're solving it. Thank you.
I just one of 40 people working on that problem. So
They're not here right now, so it's you. Yeah.
no, they're still here.
No,
They're
no.
actually all right over here. They're just watching me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're sitting there going, "Where's this
where's
going?
this going?
Where's this
Like,
going?" Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to solve it. So
All right, man. I'll let you get back with your day. Okay.
thank you. Yeah, this is fun.